the climate imperative. I think Canadians had been asking throughout the campaign, and now, like, is this Prime Minister Mark Carney of values, or is it the Prime Minister of the campaign? Like, are you going to build that pipeline if the consensus exists?
First off, I've said repeatedly yes.
Mark Carney says he's going to be building all these pipelines, north, east, south, everywhere is going to be pipelines. Newsflash, we have somebody in his prominent cabinet minister, Stephen Guilbeault, that just came out, and yeah, Canada's dream of being an energy superpower with all these pipelines is a pipe dream. Welcome back to the show. My name's Mark Nixon. Hold on to your coffee mug. You don't want to be spilling your coffee. Today's show is going to be absolutely insane. Let's get into the content. Let's go. After just 24 hours of being sworn in as a prominent cabinet minister, Stephen Guilbeault says Canada will have 0 new pipelines. Absolutely none. And why? It's because the world is no longer investing in pipelines. And in just a couple of years, we will have reached peak oil consumption. It's all downhill from here. There's no more oil in the future of Canada and the future of the world, says Stephen Guilbeault. Meantime, in the U.S., they just secured a deal with Japan worth $1 trillion for gas. We just heard from Mark Carney saying that he's going to be building all these pipelines. Which one is it? Let's see Stephen Guilbeault today.
Gregor Smith says that she's still concerned that you're part of cabinet and also the new selection of Mr. Boozing for the environment minister. She says it's too close of a tie to you. What do you say in response to that?
I think we will have to agree to disagree with Premier Smith. We think that protecting the environment, fighting climate change is important. Lots of Canadians believe that as well. It was a central element of our platform, and we will make good on our commitments.
The Prime Minister last night on TV seemed to open the door to potentially changing the emissions cap or the IAA to get projects built. What do you think of what he said?
Well, these are important conversations that we will need to have in the coming weeks.
Gregor Smith is saying that you're anti-pipeline still. What do you say in response to her concerns just broadly about the cabinet, and how do you deal with national unity? How do you address that right now?
So on pipelines, people should remember that we bought a pipeline, Trans Mountain, and that is only used right now about 40% capacity. So I think before we start talking about building an entire new pipeline, maybe we should maximize the use of existing infrastructure. And the Canadian Energy Regulator, as well as the International Energy Agency, are telling us that probably by 2028, 2029, demand for oil will peak globally, and it will also peak in Canada. So as far as I know, there are no investors right now, there are no companies that are saying that they want to build an east-west pipeline. And as you know, these things are built by companies, not governments.
Are you against the construction of pipelines in Canada? What I'm saying is that we already have an infrastructure in place that's not even at 50% capacity. So before we think about building new infrastructure, we should maximize the use of what already exists. And as I said to your colleague, the Canadian Energy Agency and the International Energy Agency. Yes, but the Prime Minister is saying, well, let's build pipelines, and you're pushing the brake on that. Well, what I'm saying is that the international and Canadian energy agencies are saying that demand for oil will peak by 2028, 2029, and there's no developer who's interested in building an east-west pipeline at this time.
We are nowhere near peak oil demand. For the rest of your lifetime, we're going to continue to increase the amount of consumption of oil and gas, regardless of what Stephen Guilbeault says. Check out this chart from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. It shows that we're going to continue to demand more oil until 2050, and it's probably going to go until beyond. Until renewables are way less expensive than oil and gas and easier to get abstract and to create, we're going to continue to demand oil. Danielle Smith is pissed, and she posted on her Twitter X account disputing Stephen Guilbeault's claim. She says right here that he's deceiving Canadians in saying that TMX is only at 40% and that we're at peak oil in 2 years. Yeah, that's all fake news. That's what Danielle Smith says. She says the fact that TMX, which is just open, and it would have been built entirely with private sector money, if Ottawa didn't make it impossible for the original proponents to be built, it's already close to peak capacity. So she's saying straight up to Stephen Guilbeault, he's full of you know what. And she moves on even further and says, further estimates, the demand of bitumen shows a growing for several more decades. It's not going anywhere. We'll need to replace declining U.S. conventional oil fields. This is another example of how misleading and destructive this former environment minister was to Alberta and Canada's economy and investment climate. And she writes, we ask that the new environment minister, Juliette Brusson, disavow his comments and to commit to working with Alberta to build new pipelines and to have access to new markets. And isn't it great there's something called the internet where we could actually fact check Stephen Guilbeault, his claim that the pipeline's only at 40% capacity. We go down here and it shows right here that the company, Enbridge Marine Terminal, is limited to 550,000 barrels per day because of draft restrictions. It's because the ships are not allowed to maneuver through the strait underneath the bridges at nighttime. They could actually bring in 30 ships every single month, so one per day. But right now, they can't. So yeah, the reason that it's not at full capacity right now is because of government restrictions. It's Stephen's fault that we are not getting this oil to market. I have a clip from Pierre Poilievre. He says that he was trying to unify Canada, including Alberta. Separation wouldn't have even been a thing, but here we are today. Pierre says he's going to continue to do his best in order to keep Alberta in Canada. Let's hear from Pierre.
Are you willing to publicly denounce Alberta separatism and the Alberta separatist movement ahead of a possible referendum on Alberta independence next year?
Look, I'm against separation. I'm a born and raised Albertan. I love Canada. I think we need to unite this country. Albertans have a lot of legitimate grievances. I mean, let's be blunt. Canada's biggest industry, which happens to largely be situated in Alberta, has been under attack for the last decade. They've lost two major pipelines, a $20 billion mine. There's a new ridiculous energy cap that's going to drive jobs and production south to the United States of America. There's an industrial carbon tax that's going to kill the industry. And so, frankly, Albertans have a right to be frustrated. And I think the message to the government in Ottawa, the Liberal government, is you can't tell Alberta to just pay up and shut up. Albertans want to be part of a united Canada, but they deserve to be treated with respect, and they deserve to be honored for the immense contribution that they make to this country. And I will be a unifier who works to bring all Albertans to a place where they feel that they are respected and honored in our wonderful country.
We're going to need Pierre Poilievre more than ever, given that the messaging from Ottawa is complete opposite. One side says they're going to build pipelines everywhere, and the other side says that oil and gas is finished. Next, I have a clip from Doug Ford. He says, we were elected with a strong mandate. What is he talking about? Is he talking about Mark Carney? Because we all know he voted for Mark Carney. And Mark Carney said the exact same thing, saying the people have provided us with a strong mandate to lead. He has a minority government, so I don't see the strong mandate he's talking about. 8 million Canadians voted for the Conservatives. And Doug Ford says that we need to compete with Donald Trump and his tariffs. Then he praises Mark Carney and says we need to scrap Bill C-69. Based on Stephen Guilbeault's comments this morning, it looks less and less likely.
Yesterday, in an interview with Vashi Kapelos, Prime Minister Carney said he's open to making changes at the federal level on projects to make sure that they move forward, and that could include on Bill C-69. Can you talk about what that would mean for nation building and national unity?
Well, it just can't be, thank you for the question, first of all, but it just can't be business as usual. we have to move forward. We got elected on a strong mandate, and we have to compete against, not just around the world, but compete against President Trump and his tariffs. And the only way we can do that is if we get rid of C-69. It doesn't allow all of us across the country to move forward in a rapid speed. And I really appreciate what Prime Minister Carney mentioned yesterday. I personally feel he's going to move quick, but we all have to move quick, all the premiers, to get our economy going, make sure we give certainty to everyone across the country, not just our individual provinces and territories. But I thought it was a real positive interview yesterday, at least what I heard. I'll pass it over to Wab if you want to give your thoughts on some of the...
Yeah, we're working together as premiers to knock down interprovincial trade barriers and to grow our economy that way. And I know we all have those big nation-building projects in mind that we want to see get done. We all want a clean, safe, healthy environment for the future generations of Canada. We all love that as Canadians. I just think it's important for the Prime Minister to respond to the current moment and ensure that these big, job-creating economic projects can move forward in a good way. Thanks.
And I'm looking just maybe for your general impressions of the new cabinet that Mr. Carney unveiled yesterday, including Tim Hodgson in Energy and Natural Resources.
Yeah, no, Tim's a super bright individual. He's going to work well with our Minister Stephen Lecce. They're both go-getters, and they want to get big projects done, and couldn't ask for two better people to work on those projects. And, you know, I don't know everyone in his cabinet. I look forward to meeting some of them. I know my MPP, he got elected, and he's Secretary of State now. Boy, or something, Secretary of State. It's amazing. You go down and meet Trump one time, and we're having Secretaries of States now. But we look forward to working with the government. And again, I've always taken this mode. I don't care what political stripe they come from. We're working with them. We're going to work collaboratively, just like all the premiers work collaboratively together from all different.
What's your thought on Doug Ford? Leave a comment. He says that Canada and the premiers are going to be unified by Canada Day. Based on the messaging they were seeing from Ottawa, that looks like a pipe dream, just like our dream of having pipes across Canada. Next, I have a clip from Sean Fraser, the guy that failed upwards, saying that he could work from home while taking care of his kids and working off of his laptop. This is the type of leadership that Canada elected.
When you decided not to run again, you said it was because you wanted to spend more time with your family, and you said when you were coming back again that you worked out a deal with Mr. Carney that you'd be able to, have a little bit more work-life balance. How does that jive with your new role?
Well, I expect what you're going to see is when the House of Commons is not sitting, given the nature of the portfolio, a lot of the stakeholders we have are less interested in having you attend groundbreakings, the openings of new buildings that you may have funded, and are quite accustomed to having meetings virtually. So I anticipate during constituency weeks I'm going to be based in my hometown a little more than I was before. There may be an opportunity, depending on what's going on in the House, to avail myself, not all the time of course, but once in a while, of the virtual abilities to participate in the House of Commons proceedings. So we're going to figure some of this out as we go. I'm very proud to have the support of my family to come back. My kids in particular are very excited, even though the little guy's only 3 years old. My daughter at 9 has a better understanding. And it's going to take work on my part, and I'm going to have to ensure that.
I have a question for you. Do you think that someone earning over $300,000 a year should be working from home while taking care of their children on their laptop? To me, that sounds like absolute nonsense. You don't want to take the job seriously. You seriously do not need to take the job. Now, I have a clip of Gregor Robertson, our new housing minister. He says the reason that housing is unaffordable in Canada is because Canada stopped being in the business of building homes in the 1990s. So naturally, the solution is more government. And the most insane part about this entire thing is that he says that he is not trying to make housing more affordable. He just says that he wants to make housing in Canada more stable. And that's probably why he got elected, because all of these liberal boomers want their housing prices to double and triple in value so they could have that wonderful retirement while the Canadian youth have no chance of getting into the housing market. And my take on this is, having the state as your landlord, what could go wrong?
Affordable housing.
Do you think
delivering
prices
that.
need to go down?
No, I think that we need to deliver more supply, make sure the market is stable. It's a huge part of our economy. We need to be delivering more affordable housing. The government of Canada has not been building affordable housing since the 90s, and we've created a huge shortage across Canada. That's where the big need is right now, and I'm very encouraged that the Prime Minister and our commitment right now in government is to double construction and focus on the affordable side.
I'm sure Gregor Robertson's going to fix this housing crisis. He has a plan to keep housing prices stable, not going down. Next, I have a clip of our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, signing executive orders. The problem is, in Canada, we don't have executive orders. This executive order is a middle-class tax cut. This is coming from a guy that is anti-Trump. He sure governs like one with his executive orders press stunts.
Canadians sent a clear message that they need to see improvements in their affordability. We promised a middle-class tax cut leading to over $800 of savings for two-income households. We're acting today on that so that by July 1st, as promised, that middle-class tax cut that will reduce taxes for the 22 million Canadians who pay federal income taxes, that tax cut will take into effect. We're acting on affordability as we look to build out this economy. It's my pleasure on behalf of the Cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut et respecter nos engagements, notre engagement pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Thank you very much.
And we just got some breaking news from Franco Terrazzano saying that Mark Carney just announced that he is not going to provide us with a federal budget this year. Forget accountability. Let's run the deficit into infinity and beyond. No guardrails, no targets, just full speed debt explosion. An economic genius with zero accountability.
Breaking news, folks. The Carney government just said that it's not going to be tabling a budget this year. Crazy, folks. I mean, first of all, this decision alone is a huge crack in Carney's credibility. Look, how can you have any credibility on fiscal responsibility if you can't even put together a budget plan, right? How can you even be a financial wizard if you can't even put together a budget? A huge credibility issue here if the government doesn't bring forward a budget. Now, look, like, Canadians have every reason to be worried about the state of our national finances, right? The government is more than $1 trillion in debt. The government doubled the debt in less than a decade. The government has been running deficits in the tens of billions of dollars every single year. In Carney's platform, he plans to add another $225 billion to the debt over the next 4 years. I mean, folks, the banker is supposed to be better with the numbers than the drama teacher, but Carney is planning on adding almost $100 billion of more debt than even what Trudeau was planning to do. Okay, think about it this way. Interest payments on the debt alone are blowing a $1 billion hole in the budget every single week. Okay, welcome to Canada, folks, where every single dollar you pay in federal sales taxes goes to pay interest charges on the debt. So Canadians have every reason to be worried about the state of our national finances. And with this decision, the Carney government is essentially just shrugging it off. Oh, don't worry, folks. Well, here's the thing. Taxpayers deserve a budget. Taxpayers deserve to know the true state of our national finances, and taxpayers deserve the ability to hold the government spending plans accountable. But that's pretty hard when the government isn't even going to present a budget. So here's the thing, folks. Canadians deserve a budget. The Carney government must come out with a budget this year, okay? That is end of story, simple as that. And here's the thing. With this decision of the Carney government not presenting a budget, well, that is a huge crack in the government's credibility. Folks, we're going to fight this hard to make sure that the government is transparent with you and presents a budget plan.
And with Parliament all the way shut down, the Governor General has approved $73 billion without any oversight, without any debate in the House of Commons. And now we know they sent $178 million to CBC, and CBC is doing what they do best. CBC brought on Liberal shill Tyler Meredith, the former Trudeau's economic advisor, to cover for Mark Carney's decision not to table a budget this year. CBC is straight up a paid propaganda machine for the federal government. Let's take a look at this news press conference.
There will be a fall economic statement. There will not be a budget this year. And so that likely means with holidays and all of that, that there probably will be a 2-year period, about a 2-year period where their government will not have presented a budget. What do you make of that?
Well, remember the government actually did present the fall economic statement in December. It was actually tabled in the House of Commons. We forget that because that was the day that Chrystia Freeland resigned. So we've had an update already in terms of the forecast of what the government's view is of the economy. Now, obviously, things have changed since then. There's been new policy decisions, and obviously there were fiscal forecasts presented on that in the platforms of each of the respective parties in the election. But it's not unheard of in this particular moment for governments to delay the introduction of a budget. We just saw in Ontario, for example, who's going to table their budget later this week, there was a gap of several months since the election concluded at the end of February. And the reason that there was that gap in Ontario is because they wanted a bit of time in order for things to stabilize a little bit more in the economy before they give people that forecast. I think for this particular circumstance, given the high degree of uncertainty about what's happening in the U.S. economy and how that would affect, obviously, the outlook of finances in Canada, it's not unreasonable to want to take a little bit of time to get a sense of where things are going in the economy. Because, of course, if we are in a recession, that will have a significant impact on public finances. If we're not in a recession, that will have a significant impact in the other direction. And we need to kind of let that play out a little bit before we know. So, I understand why people would be concerned about the timing. But as long as we get that in the fall, I wouldn't worry too much.
I was wondering, Tyler, if this is Prime Minister Mark Carney leaning on his bank governor kind of ways, and that the bank often will act proactively, defensively, depending on where the economy is where they think it's going in this moment of extreme volatility. Who knows what's going to happen with the trade war with the United States? Is that what you're implying is going on here?
Well, I think it's just a reflection that the reality is the single biggest thing that's going to determine what the shape of public finances are in the short to medium term is going to be whether or not we're in a recession. And that will be determined in part by what happens in the global economy and also the feedback effect of whether the U.S. is in a recession as well. And so, if you were to do a survey today of private sector economists, which of course is the most significant input that one has to building a budget, people would be a little bit skeptical, I think, a little bit downbeat in their estimates of what's going to happen with economic growth. And that just has a huge knock-on effect in terms of the fiscal framework. And so I think they just maybe want to see what's happening with that, which frankly we will get potentially a better direction from once the president comes for the G7 in June. So we'll see how that plays out. But I would just caution that this is not unheard of for governments to want to wait to kind of let the smoke clear a little bit in the current haze that we're in.
What do you think about CBC trying to protect Mark Carney with his not giving us a federal budget? This should be against the law. We haven't had a federal budget in 2 years. And if you call Chrystia Freeland throwing this thing, she actually didn't throw anything. She got somebody else to deliver the $62.5 billion deficit in December because she quit, if you do not recall. Now we have a government approving billions upon billions of dollars with absolutely zero budget. What do you think about that, Canada? And I'm going to finish this segment off with a news report from 1982. That's 43 years ago. That said that the oceans would rise and Florida would be underwater as of today. Well, it's been 43 years and the water levels hasn't risen anywhere around the world. And all of this climate hysteria has not come true. We just found out that Antarctica ice sheet is growing at a record pace right now. So all of this climate change and maximum CO2 is going to cause all of this global warming and catastrophic effects. Wow, take a look at this report and I'm going to let you decide if it's all fake. That's right. I'll see you on the next report.
Concern about rising temperatures on planet Earth heated up a hearing here in Washington today. For years, scientists have theorized about the dangers of the so-called greenhouse effect, the warming of the Earth's atmosphere due to the burning of coal and oil. And in recent months, as David Culhane reports, research has uncovered facts to support that theory.
Many scientists claim that the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere has been rising over the past 100 years, that the great sheets of pack ice in Antarctica are melting at a much more rapid rate than previously. And finally, that the sea level has been rising with increasing swiftness over the past 40 years. If these scientists are correct, about 25% of Florida would be flooded, along with low-lying areas all over the world. Climate changes could produce widespread disruption of agriculture. The American farm belt might be too dry, and the wheat and corn crops would have to move to Canada. Scientists blame the odorless, colorless carbon dioxide gas for these potentially dangerous changes around the planet. It is the greenhouse effect. The gas allows sunlight to filter down and warm the Earth. But like the glass of a greenhouse, the carbon dioxide tends to trap heat so that it cannot rise into space. The scientists maintain that the coal, oil, and gas we've been burning for 100 years have produced more and more carbon dioxide and helped overheat the Earth. Now, some political leaders endorse the demands for more CO2 monitoring stations, like this one in Hawaii. And they share the anger of the scientists at Reagan administration budget cuts at a time when they feel closer to getting definitive answers.
We are not doing the kind of research that we should be doing to determine whether or not these scientists who are so alarmed are correct in their assessment.
And what they find out will affect the lives and fortunes of millions of people, the very survival of cities like this one.